And we are back. This is AR Tales, aka the A.R.T podcast. I am Amina Bun, and today I am joined with Carolyn Potts, aka Care, for her friends and family and whatnot. She is the author of Inside and Out, an upcoming book, and she is actually on the same exact path that I am, just trying to get the book out, going through all the struggles, all the turmoils, and we're going to talk all about that today. Carolyn, how you doing? Care, how you doing?
Good. I'm happy to be here. I'm excited. My first podcast, so honestly, it's an honor.
Oh, well, thank you, and I'm honored to have you. I'm honored that you're honored, I guess. So walk me through what got you into writing. Where did it start? Was it a young thing? Was it something that developed when you were older? Were you more into reading when you were younger? How was it?
Yeah, definitely started as a reader ever since I was young. Like there's a baby picture of me in a rocking chair holding a book upside down, but I am so focused on that book, and I don't even remember that picture, or I don't remember obviously that moment, but the picture's still in my house, and I'm like, yeah, I think that's where my parents should have known she's going to be a writer. I was always heavily reading, and then the writing kind of followed probably on. I can remember in first grade, because my first grade teacher, we had an assignment where we had to write what was the nicest thing someone could say about you. And I wrote, I want someone to tell me that I'm creative, because I always have a lot to say. And usually when you're young and you talk a lot, you know, teachers are like, talks too much in class, it's disruptive, or you just be quiet. So, and I wrote like, I mean, my handwriting was big, but I wrote about 6 pages. So I think it really, that was like the marking point. And my teacher pulled me up after class and was like, you're very creative, you're so outspoken, and was just like hyping 7-year-old me up. And that kind of just stuck. So yeah. And both my sisters are like, they can paint or they can draw, and my art skills are nothing like that. So I was like, well, guess I'll have to be a writer. And that's just where it started. And I've been doing it for, I'm 23 now, so you can do the math, but yeah.
Wow, that's phenomenal. I always felt like I don't know, it took me way too long to like realize everything. You know, when I was young, I used to play with my toys like heavily. Like I used to have like a plot line that went on for, I mean, ever. Like it was like year round, and I would put the toys in specific order, and if anybody ever moved them, I was like, yo, imagine if I just moved you from your house. Like, you know what I mean? That's eviction. You're like the
Yeah.
ice right now. I don't know, it was like so weird, and how I ended up developing. And I was never that great in school. I remember I wrote this story in like elementary school about all the brands of like animals, like
Wow.
Cheetos and like Frosted Flakes and all that.
Yeah.
They all like started disappearing, and like Cheetos was the cheetah guy was like the one guy that was like left over, and he was like trying to like go through the mystery, and none of it made sense. Like I remember my teacher gave me a C only because it was like so like out of there. Everything
Yeah.
else was terrible.
C for
Everything else was terrible.
creativity.
Yeah, exactly. It was like, all right, kid. I mean, I guess you tried the
Yeah.
hardest you could, as opposed to like drawing in class and not even caring.
Oh my
Uh,
God.
oh, that was weird. Did you hear that? Oh, by the way, never mind. So, no, because I have my AC on. I normally don't during recording, so I was gonna ask if you can hear it.
I can't now.
Perfect. I should have done that before the recording, but what can we do? Um, so walk me through Inside and Out. So you went from the beginnings of your writing career, started maturing through high school, I'm assuming, and now you're at the point that you want to go and actually, you know what? Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and write my own book. And I'm assuming, if I could, that
Yeah.
COVID also kind of helped along with that.
See, that's really funny, because no, I actually
Oh shit.
well, I'll explain that in a minute, but yeah, I mean, specifically my idea started when I was in high school. My original idea was that everybody has the social security number, and it's actually a code or a date to when the government is going to kill you. So that was like the very beginning of my idea, and I only wrote like the first 30 pages, and I never like finished that part of it, because I just didn't have it developed enough. I didn't plan it out enough. So then, like, you know, as the years kind of went by, and I was just trying to tweak with that idea. Plus, like, the thought of becoming a published author and really putting myself out there was so daunting on me as like a full-time student and a full-time worker. And at that time, writing was really just a hobby for me, even though it was a dream. But that's all it was. It was a dream. It wasn't a planned out like thing that I was doing it. So yeah, it wasn't until then in college when I took a bunch of creative writing classes, and my one professor said that, you know, we're just going to focus on the writing. We're not going to focus on the publishing part, because honestly, none of you are going to write a book. And she said that. I was like, how are you a professor? Like, why would you crush dreams like that? So I didn't have any guidance when it came to publishing a book, and I had to do it all myself. And that's why I made my Instagram page, which is tips of helping becoming authors as I go through my process, because I didn't have any of that. So I want to give guidance to people as they're doing it. So then my ideas very in depth, and I wrote out a part of it as basically and I don't have the blurb for it yet, so I'm trying to keep it concise because it's a big blurb. But basically, the government started forcing people to become part AI because everybody was starving. America has annexed from all the other countries, so we're not trading, so the world's gone to shit. And when you become part AI, you don't need as much food to live. And eventually people started revolting, and it became a civil war. So when COVID hit and, you know, everything became online, I was like, did I just somehow speak this into existence? Like, I had the idea first, world, and then it kind of took it and made it into somewhat a reality. So I'm kind of mad about COVID on a personal level.
Isn't it kind of awesome when that type of shit happens though? When you start like making like a little, because I feel like it happens to like everybody, where like if it's not a world event, it's like a Netflix show that comes out and they're like, wait a minute, yes, I thought of that 3 months ago. They have bugs on my computer. They got me. I know it.
Yeah, you're like, you owe me money. Like, you somehow picked up my idea and now we're fighting. Yeah.
Oh, no, it really is the worst. But then like, it's kind of awesome because now, like, you know that's out there, and now you can like structure yours kind of like around that. You know, like the things that they did and you like, you can be like, okay, I can, you know, kind of borrow some ideas, and when they don't like it, be like, all right, this is where I'm gonna go my way.
Yeah, a lot of it that kind of helped too. When I went back to edit my book in the midst of COVID happening was a lot of people's different reactions to COVID and to everything being online, and like the whole everything being so political. So everybody's reaction, I kind of take a little bit, and I don't obviously pick a side in my books, but I have each character express a different view. So whether you're extremely left or extremely right or whatever, if you read my book, you're going to see both sides. And I don't try to present them in a way that's like, he was obviously so stupid or blah, blah, blah. I have it like, you know what? They have a good point. So that's kind of where it was nice to take everybody's reaction and put it in one space.
Plus, I'm getting like a lot of like anti-government vibes from it. So I have like an idea that like a lot of the book is kind of like counter control type of thing.
Oh my God. Yeah. It's extremely anti-government, which is like me at my core.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. So yeah, people start revolting about becoming part AI, and these group of teens start like banning against that. And then yeah, the government starts, I don't want to give too much away, but then the government starts like bombing the city, and people that are not already in virtual is what the centers are called. They basically either die or they try to escape to this place called Creation that is also being built. And Creation is the polar opposite, where instead of everything being super like material and super electronic, instead it's all about spirituality. And then it's about being fake woke and people just being conflicted. It's like, well, should I be superhuman and be part AI? Like, I think Elon Musk is coming out with what's it called? Some like mind chip that you can put it in your brain and it does make you part robot. And I didn't even know that too when I was writing my book, but that's a whole nother note.
Facebook too.
Yeah. Or, you know, do people become enter Creation and think that they have to be meditating all the time and they can't ever be angry because those aren't like positive vibe attitudes. So it's about just being like, you're a fucking human. It's okay to be all of those things or to be none of those things. And each character that I have has a different reaction and development throughout my book with all of that happening.
Fuck, I love that. Especially with like everything that's happening now with like the virtual signaling and like oh, that crazy. You know, it was the first time I really like kind of woke up to that. It was like during the France bombings and all that, which was like, you know, terrible tragedy and whatnot. But there was this one girl that I saw that I didn't even have Facebook at the time, but a friend of mine showed it. It was like a post of hers, and she did like, you know, the translucent France flag of like her, of like a picture of like her in the bathroom or whatnot. And then she just talked about how she went to France one time and how tragic it was that if she could have been there. And it was like,
Oh,
so you took a tragedy like that to just like add like virtue to yourself. You know what I mean? To like
yeah,
just like,
yeah.
you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. It speaks so heavily to like that, to, I think, to the point that you're talking about in like the book with the whole like, you know,
You're like,
creation,
that's
all
what
that.
me.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
I
I love
feel that.
that.
And it's one thing if you want to have those feelings, fine. But I mean, you don't need to present it to the world and be like, yeah, that happened in France, but like, guys, I could have been there. It's just like, okay, but you weren't, and
Yeah.
it's count your blessings, but don't harp on what could have been. It wasn't. So it's just, you got to shape your perspective.
Now, this immediately makes me think, what do you feel about genre? I know for me, I mean, I still deal with that now, that I really don't even know where to put, what to label my book, if there is labels or genres or anything. But what do you feel is the genre of your book?
Yeah, I related to your account because I identify as the science, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's science fiction fantasy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I felt at first I didn't know if that was a genre. I feel like genres are a growing list anyways. Like every year there's a new genre. But I most related to that because that's what I think mine would be, because there is science fiction with definitely the AI, but then fantasy because the spiritual aspect. But even though I believe, like all the spiritual things are true, and a lot of my own spiritual experience I do bring into the book, but it definitely is fantasy because it's not tangible. You can't touch it. So I would say that it's also futuristic and it's dystopian,
Hmm.
because it's about a perfect world or perfect worlds in society. And yeah, and then it takes place in the future. So I don't know. It's just fiction.
No, I mean, like, I guess I've been trying to study the like the whole genre thing myself, and I guess without putting any labels on it, I kind of would agree that it sounds like science fiction fantasy. Like regular science fiction is like The Martian, where it's
Right.
like it could happen tomorrow if it so happened to like play out that way. But like
Right.
Star Wars is science fiction fantasy.
Right.
Galaxy far away, you know, they got the Force, XYZ.
It's like out of reach. Yeah.
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 But kind of
Um,
there, tangible. It's like, okay, maybe.
and
Draws
that
parallels to our own universe.
right. And that's why I really like dystopian books or movies. Like I think of Black Mirror because they take concepts that are so, oh my God, like either like it's kind of happening, but they take it and totally stretch it, but to a point where it's like, yeah, but I could still see that happening. And I really like those books because they really make you think and they make you evaluate what's actually happening in your environment and what are you doing in reaction to that environment.
I mean, yeah, I mean, like so much of science fiction comes from like kind of like the fear of what technology can do, especially that if you like level out evolution of technology versus like our biological evolution, technology is whooping that ass like unbelievable. Oh, I think we just lost her.
No,
Technical
I'm
issues.
here. My phone is 20%, so I wanted to use my laptop, but we'll figure it out.
You have a connectable charger, whatnot?
I do. I have it plugged into my computer, and I'm worried that's why I didn't have sound. But let me try to plug that back in and see what happens.
All right, I'm gonna hit pause real quick just until we get it done. And then and we are back. We just had a little technical difficulties all cleared up. We don't know what we were talking
Yeah.
about before, but we're talking about aliens now.
Yeah, we just kind of went off. So you're just going to have to pick back up where we're at now.
That's fine. If it's important, we'll remember.
Yeah. Well, I know I brought up George Wells, who
War of the Worlds, yes.
yeah, we were talking about books in general and how, or fiction, science fiction in particular, how it's like, oh my gosh, like it could happen any minute, and how the radio station was reading that book on a newscast or a news broadcast, whatever, through the radio, and people started tuning in and really thought that shit was happening, that like aliens were here in New York City, and it caused a panic. And I was just saying that I think that would be really cool.
When I first got my idea of like doing anything, because like writing is a motherfucker, right? So like I had no idea of that. My background is in engineering. Like I had no idea I was gonna get into writing whatsoever. But I did like you know, I love watching movies and like TV shows and playing with my toys when I was a kid. Not anymore, but you get the idea. It was just like, you know, fucking around with plots and character development. I just
Yeah.
loved it, right? So like my first thing was that I was gonna make instead of like a recording, I was gonna do like a recording, like I was gonna make a podcast of a story basically. And I was gonna get like a voice actor, like a girl, and she was gonna have like a really shaky like recording. I was gonna make it sound like it was like legit. Like I
Oh
wanted her to
wow.
sound like she was really scared, and it was gonna be that there was like a psychic alien invasion, and it's not a thing that they're coming; it's a thing that they're already here. And like she just gets like progressively like more crazy sounding as like the thing continues. And I never ever planned on saying that it was anything like that that was fake or it was fiction at all. I was gonna drop it.
Oh my God. Why
There's
didn't you?
no, because I just got into writing and I like started doing the numbers. I was like, all right, so making a book is one thing, but audio recording and audio editing,
Yeah,
nah,
I know.
that's
I
another level.
actually I wanted to turn my book eventually into an audiobook because a lot of people listen to now podcasts and audiobooks. They're just more popular, but it's so expensive to one hire a voice actor. Or if you try to do it yourself, like you might just go absolutely crazy with, yeah, the recording. And I read this one tip where if you do that and you mess up while you're reading it, you should clap really loudly. So when you go back and edit it, you can see like, oh, that spike that needs to be spliced or that needs to be edited out. But yeah, that would be quite some work.
That's good though. All right, so I don't edit this podcast, right? My very first two episodes, I try to edit it. It took me 36 hours to edit my first hour and a half of recording.
Jeez.
And after that, I was like, you know what? We're just gonna learn to talk better. No more no more okays. You're just gonna fill up space. You're gonna be better. We're just gonna do
Communication
that.
is
Yeah,
key, right?
communication is key. I'm not gonna spend my time like like I can't tell you the amount of like stress I was done like I had by like Monday that I was like, all right, I gave an entire weekend. I mean, an entire weekend to
Yeah.
doing this, and I just like I remember I gave it to my friend. And he was like, "Oh, I hear a few pops." I'm like, "Oh, you hear a few pops, huh?
You're like, I was
Why?
about to pop.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. No, come on, meet me outside. I just want to talk real quick."
Oh my, yeah, I don't blame you. It's stressful. That's why I thought even editing my book, like that's just words. So yeah, I hired and I think that's like smart. If you're running a book, you should hire a professional editor, someone who like relishes in the editing part to do that for you. Otherwise, I mean, your book won't come out as clean, or you're gonna think you did fine editing, and it's gonna be published, and you're gonna be like, oh no, I was a little bit too wine drunk and half asleep, and I don't even know what this character's saying. Oh man.
Oh my God. I've been done with my book for like, I don't even know, like I think like a year at least now. And I've done all this just editing.
Yeah.
Just like
Yeah.
revision after revision. Like I just got I got my first professional editor, I think like a month and a half ago. And it
Okay.
was one of those things that it was just like, yeah, I don't know why I didn't do this sooner.
Yeah. I
You
mean,
know?
I think you should read it yourself when you're done writing it and like make your own edits, like so you can get the glaring ones, like a typo or like, you know, something where you know a character didn't mean to say this, or just make it clear for yourself. So then when you give it to an editor, you can actually pay them to do the deeper work, things that you wouldn't pick up on.
That is the main thing. I cannot tell you how, like you kind of like use like really good verbiage or wine drunk. It's like it doesn't even have to be wine. It's just like, you know, when you're just like dazed and just like it was like, oh yeah, no, that sounds right to me. And you like look over like 1,000 times. You're like, no, 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 no. And then you like you doubt yourself, double check in the morning. You're like, no, yeah, that's great. And then you
Yeah,
check it
no.
like 3 months later, and you're like, oh. How there's literally two words. There's from. How did I miss that?
Yeah,
Rereading it 1,000 times because your
I
brain just
know.
edits out because like you wanted it gone, so like your brain just like, oh yeah, that's not there.
It's gone. Don't worry
Yeah,
about it.
don't even worry
Yeah.
about it. Yeah,
I've gone back and edited and like have read literally paragraphs. And if you, when I first was writing my book, if you told me I was going to do this, I probably would have just stopped writing then and there. But when I came back to the editing part, I have deleted full on pages or full on paragraphs where I'm like, this is complete trash, and just took it out. And it makes your book so much better because at first, you know, I was all about length and wanting my book to be a specific amount and like I needed it in there. But then I went back and I'm like, if I keep this in there, it'll ruin my book. You won't even, the reader is going to be like, what is this writer talking about, and not want to continue. So that's kind of like biting the bullet too, like editing your own work and knowing and admitting when it was bad and owning it.
have you ever read Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy?
Yes. That book is so funny, actually.
200 pages, man.
And it's genius.
Genius. It's unreal. There's like that. I mean, I'll misquote it forever. And there was one time that I quoted in front of this person, and they got it so on the tee that I was like, all right, shit. Evidently, I never read the book, but
My dad.
yeah,
I don't know how to read.
Yeah. But it was like along the lines of like it was like making an observation of like Earth, talking about how like the humans are like so preoccupied on like um papers with green paper with faces on it, but they never like stopped to like realize that the paper didn't have faces on them. So what were they really pursuing, type of thing. I remember when I first read that, like I had to like really stop and like think about life, just like, like take a minute. I can't remember the last time that like a book has really made me do that. A few TV shows will make me do that.
Yeah.
But like literature that's just like one line like that, to me,
and
that's like what like beautiful, perfect right there. Like not like a 3 paragraphs going on and on, but that one line, they're just, oh
yeah,
okay.
That one hook. No, I really do appreciate. That's why you always say, like, or people always say the book is better than the movie, because they give you a lot of those singular lines that a TV show definitely could convey like through a scene, but when you can get inside somebody's head and then you read it in your own head, it just hits a different nerve.
Now, there was something that you said that I definitely want to bring up again. You talked about Black Mirror. Could you? I said mirror really weird there. I said it like I was like from the South. Mirror. Yeah. Could you like give me a ranking of your favorite Black Mirror episodes? Because I feel like, like especially with science fiction, I mean, Black Mirror is like our Bible. Like that is like the highest length of like what science fiction is. It's just like how bad can technology turn and it always starts so good. That's like the best part about it. There's that quote from the guy that helped make the atomic bomb, like, I am become death or destruction, whatever it is. You really just never know the scope of what you're doing. Like, you think Steve Jobs had an idea of Twitter or like the effect that like social media would have on people? No idea. It was just like, like, oh yeah, apps and whatnot and XYZ. Never had like the idea of like what that type of prolonged exposure to technology like that would do to people. It's crazy.
Well, that's like that Netflix series. What is it about social media? The one where it talks about Google, Twitter, Instagram. What?
The Circle?
I don't think so. It's I forget what it's called, but it's about how social media, like, it's like that long-term exposure that you're talking about, and how the creators of Google and Facebook and Instagram, they never expected that it would be so life consuming, that it was supposed to just simply be a way for you to connect to people when they were away or when you were away, and that was it. And then it became so much more, like it became attached to people. So the Black Mirror episode that I'm thinking of too was the one where people got rated. And they always had this screen above their head, and it was, they have like this many stars, and if you didn't have this many stars, you couldn't eat at this restaurant, or you couldn't go to this person's party, or you lived in this part of town. It was like your like Google ranking just above your head at all times.
The Uber rating for like life.
Yeah, pretty much. That one was wild, because that one, I feel like, I mean, I think I know people who really do act like that, like on or off screen, and it's so crazy. That's why, I mean, like I said earlier, like when I was making my Instagram for this page, and then I was like, oh, I should make a website, and I almost just stopped right there, because I was like, I hate being so involved with technology all of the time, even though it's so great. It's a love-hate relationship. And that's probably why my book too has a lot of love-hate with the technology. It's a very conflicting feeling that I don't know how to go. And it's not like it's going away. I mean, it's only going to get more and more advanced. So it's kind of like, well, survival of the fittest, you have to adapt. Sorry, I know that was like 6 different topics in one, but you brought up technology and I went on a tangent. So
no, that is light compared to what I do on this fucking podcast. But my God, no, I agree with every point that you were talking about. I mean, especially like, I don't know. The thing is, I don't even believe the people that like talk about that social media thing that they didn't know. I feel like that's like what you say after like it's fucked up and it's like, oh shit, okay.
Yeah.
Hands up, it wasn't me. It's like a Bill Burr joke. It's like, hands up, I'm not aroused. I wasn't here.
It's so easy to be like, well, I had no idea. And it's like, that must have been in the back of your mind that you knew you were making something big. Like when you're making that idea, it's the same thing when you write a book. You're like, I want it to make an impact on someone. Like you write a story and typically there's a message in your story. There's something you want the reader to take away from. Same thing when you invent anything. It's you want to make an impact on people. That's why people invent things. That's the whole purpose of making things. We're creators of our own life, and that's just the point of it.
Now, the whole reason I even brought up science fiction to begin with is that the reason science fiction is my favorite genre is that people usually always blend in science fiction with like some type of mythology, religion, spirituality, like type of thing, like looking for a higher self type of thing.
Yeah.
Why do you think that is, one, and how do you think you incorporate that idea?
I think it's intertwined because technology is kind of at a point where it's becoming too advanced for us humans. It's too much for our own good. So I think just naturally we are in awe by it. So we want to like attach all these other mystical things and try to find explanation and reason, because as a human, we like things in boxes. We're constantly organizing concepts and trying to make sense of things. So when you have something like science fiction, it's kind of like, okay, well, here's kind of a logical thing. And this is, the spiritual aspect of it because of this. And you just try to reason and you try to like find that oomph or that eureka like in it. And that's what makes it so entertaining. And I think I added in my book, when I incorporate a lot of morality questions about being forced to become part AI, and if that would ever happen to us, or if it does happen to us, how are we going to react to it? And some people in my book say, like, you know what, though, if becoming part AI means I don't starve to death, it means that I don't have to eat as much food and it's survival of the fittest, why would I not want to do it? But then other people in my book are like, because it's not human, it's not part of our biological makeup, and I want to hold on to my true being. And then I bring in also the spiritual aspect, and it's kind of the same thing. I like the saying where it's you're a human having a spiritual experience. So I play with that part as well, that at the end of the day you are just a human. You might have all these things that could make us superhuman or make us amazing, and we definitely can appreciate it, but that doesn't mean you have to like literally kill yourself to try to be this utopian dystopian figure.
Man, I love that. That was my favorite class I ever took in college. Like ironically, out of like everything that I did, it was like an elective that I did called art and technology. And like the main thesis of the teacher said in the beginning and the end of the class, literally the first and end of the class, it was like fucking Vince Gilligan directed it. She said that like the whole thing of man, the whole progression of man, if you like look back from like Frankenstein, which was kind of at the crux of that, it was that like our whole thing was like going after God. Like we were trying to go back into Eden through like worship. And that over time, we've just been degraded, and technology has become that worship.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree.
It could just like, and it's such like an interesting like thing, because like, you look at the Hadron Collider, literally creating miniature, like minuscule universes, and like by like popping atoms and like whatever the heck at like near speed of light. We're just like doing shit that's like, I'm not gonna, like, you can't say ungodly, because like I guess that's the whole question. Like at what point? I mean, I guess that's what science fiction is. Oh, I guess that's basically it. Huh?
Do you answer your own question?
Man, I guess.
Like at what point is it not godly, or?
Yeah, like at what point do you think it's like not okay to mess around? Like if we got the possibility to like literally compress all of the universe smaller, like keep all gravity the same, like we're not affected in any like devastating way, but everything is just smaller so we can travel faster. If we had the possibility of doing that, should we do that? Literally alter the entire universe.
I would say, okay, I think the answer is no, simply because if you do want to bring God into it, I'm not saying God like the super religious. I mean, my family grew up Christian, so that is like, I don't condone Christianity. I don't follow that, but that's the religion I'm most familiar with. But this goes for any religion, where the thing is, there is a God and you are human, and yes, God like resides in you, and the whole point is to get back to the source but you don't try to play God. You just try to tap into your own path and your own way to reach God on your own personal level. So if we have the technology or the whatever to do that, I don't know if it should be done, but if it is done, it should most certainly be a choice. It shouldn't one person decide, well, we're going to do it. Everybody else has to go along with it. So I'm like really big on freedom of choice, and everybody, like, I guess I'm very libertarian. Like everybody like do your own thing, and don't infringe your own rights or infringe on somebody else's rights.
Now, I'm not saying that, not calling you out or anything like that. And
no, go ahead, please.
I definitely don't, we're not definitely not condoning drugs, wink, wink, on this show. But how do you think psychedelics play into this whole like spirituality thing? Because when I really sit back and like really think about it and like to try to like go as far as I can, like trying to like get like inspiration for like next like idea, like next books and whatnot. I always think that like maybe the reason why that like Egypt was like so highly, like sought after, and why they were doing all these crazy things that we still can't mimic today is because they were just at our same level, but just in a different way. Maybe instead of like valuing plastic and fucking like Google and Amazon and all this shit, they just like valued the shit of like psychedelic trips and like mental journeys and all these things, and they would consort their shamans the same way that we would consort whatever the heck. And like, I mean, who really are we to say that like there's a difference just because we have skyscrapers and versus like their ziggurats? I mean, that's just
right. It's just two totally different developments. And actually, I was watching like a TED talk about people that have mental illness like bipolar or schizophrenia, but specifically in African countries. And instead, because they don't have like the Western medicine that we have, or the westernized hospitals and therapy, it's like instead what they do is make it a community, and they take an adult who had like growing up, they had these same mental problems, and they stay with a kid and they kind of mentor them and they teach them about meditation and lucid dreaming and astral projection. And it's more awakening. I think the TED talk was called psychosis or awakening, something like that. And I think that's a really great concept, where it's like, just because we live in America and we have like these sciences and whatever, in other countries they find other ways, and I like admire that so much, because they're definitely not wrong. If anything, I would say they're more right. Not to like totally diminish our science, because I mean our science does do like our medical thing.
I think we are facing some technical issues. We will be back momentarily. Bing, boom, bing, boom, bang, boom, bing. I need to get a guitar, like a ukulele, in case this ever happens. Or like a little drum. That would be litty. All right. I'm going to have to. Oh, no, we're back. Oh, thank God I wrote that one out.
All right. You can hear me? We're good?
Yeah, no, we're good. We're back.
All right. Yeah, did you hear, did anything get cut out? Did I need to repeat anything, or are we good?
I heard, oh, fuck me. What was the last thing you said?
About Western medicine versus. Yes. But yeah, kind of like what you were saying. It's just two, like the same idea, but split into two different possibilities.
Yeah, because you were talking about like wait, so what do they do? So they got together these like African communities, and what they would do their version of peyote or whatever in order to get rid of these like PTSD problems?
Yeah, well, I don't even know. I guess it could be PTSD as well, but any mental health where somebody, like I think of like schizophrenia, where it's like, that's one of the most severe mental illnesses. And, kids, if they don't even have those concepts, like they might not even know what schizophrenia is or have a term for it. So they might just think this person is actually so woke. They can see people that aren't there. They hear things that aren't there. They're going mad, but in like the best way possible. I would assume it's like your many past lives living inside you. And so they take that as like, this person can see beyond this earthly realm. So they would cherish that, and they would like have them go into these trances or these even just deep meditations, and then come out and explain what they saw or give messages. And it's just beautiful. It's a really good way to look at mental illness, where, I mean, I don't even like calling it a mental illness, because that implies that there's something wrong with you. And it's the mind we're talking about. I mean, it's so complex. How are you going to say, well, that's right and that's wrong? at least, you know, in that aspect when it comes to mental health.
I have a cousin that has like autism.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, like, you know how like the families are like always supposed to treat him like, you know, like XYZ. But
Right.
like to me, when you look at him in the eyes, it's like looking at an elephant. There's so much behind that. You know what I mean? It's like
Yeah.
there's so much life and like thought happening behind. Like I always, even as a kid, I always thought like he is just perceiving a different life than we are. Like I don't know, he
Yeah.
would just start laughing. I'm like, fuck, I want to laugh, dude.
Yeah.
Like
Like they're
what is
just
so
so much.
funny? I want to laugh.
Right. They're just more, they're happier, freer. I mean, but at the same time, you know, they have their own blockages. But again, it's not like it's right or wrong. It just is all about perspective. So again, I don't know if we were recording when we were talking about this, but like the view of being egocentric. It's like my worldview and that's it. And it's like it's such yeah, fear-based way to live, such a shallow way to live. And I think we should always be trying to expand our mind. That's why, I mean, I've read books, we were talking about genres earlier. I've read books and genres that I wouldn't think that I like. I actually took a science fiction class in college because, well, I mean, I really wanted to get into being a well-rounded writer and author, but before that class, I never really read science fiction. I always felt like, oh, it's weird, it's out of my realm, or I was always like, I like murder mysteries. But then, like, even the murder mysteries, when you read too much of them or have too much of anything, it gets old. I mean, you know, they're so good books, but you need to appreciate that there's like so much other art out there. So I mean, yeah, I think we should always be exploring, definitely.
Um, what was your first science fiction book? And what age?
I actually, I don't even know. Because in that class, I'm not even kidding, we had to read, it was more of a book club. We had to read a book a semester, or I'm sorry, a book a week. So how many weeks
How
are
many
there in it?
pages?
Oh, they varied. It varied it varied from like just little scripts, like just like printed out. My teacher got them off the internet to like
Yeah.
full on novels. I don't even remember, but they all like stunned me in some way or the other. Like even in science fiction of itself, I feel like there's so many different ways to go, whether it's robots or with aliens or with like monsters like Frankenstein or whatever. There's just, yeah, there's so much just in that genre. And I never expected that my book would be science fiction in a way with technology. I really took myself by surprise there.
So walk me through what you think is you're gonna do with the book. I mean, do you think you're gonna have it as I mean, there seems a lot that you can have like a entire series, like, you know, whatever you want to do with it, but what is your goal and what is your plan for what the
So
idea that you
yeah,
have?
I eventually long term, I do want it to become a Netflix series. I do want it to get on the
Okay.
screen. That's just, again, that's at this point just a dream. I don't know any directors or anything like that to make it happen, but eventually I do want that. So the book that I have now, like I said, it takes place in the future, and it's about basically the world going to shit, and then this place creation, this spiritual bubble that people live in, and like a bunch of shit happening in there. So I then wanted to make it a trilogy, and then the second book be about, well, what happens after my first book. I can't really go too much into that without giving away
Mm-hmm.
what this book is about, but I want to be like, okay, this happened in this book, and then what? So that's the second book, and then I want the third book to be about how creation was developed. How did this spiritual world created by the one character, Devea is her name? How who was she? How was she born? Like, what was her growing up with like a bunch of like AI shit going on, and how did she make creation? So then it's kind of more focused around her. So I do want it to be a trilogy. So I've actually just been playing since I finished my first book. I've been playing around with ideas for the second book.
Now, all right, we're gonna pretend I'm a Netflix producer. I just gave you the full bill. What are you gonna do?
With the bill, well, I'd ask questions. I want to know how involved am I in the production.
No,
Because
showrunner. You're Vince Gilligan of Breaking Bad. You can do whatever you want. If you want to do 6 seasons in a movie like Community, if you want to do, I don't know, 2 movies and then I don't know, like some Marvel shit, like a movie and like another TV show in the background. Like, how would you do it if there was no limit? You can choose whoever you want. You got it.
I okay. Well, I think I'd have to do actors that aren't super familiar, and they'd have to be not familiar because I want to be able not to like know their names, because I don't want, I mean, it's one, and I feel like that's so opposite because I think people want to see movies where they recognize an actor, but because I want my book to like at the same time hold a different aura, hold a different like not mainstream vibe to it, that I want it to be very all over the world kind of cast, because in my book I talk about other countries. So again, it has to be diverse. So it have to have a lot of different backgrounds. And I would want it to be, maybe I would say like 12 episodes, and like no, maybe like 15 episodes, 3 seasons, one per each book. But my book that I have now currently is 444 pages. Angel number, by the way, 444, and that wasn't even planned. So it's gonna be so maybe a director would be like, that sounds great, but not possible. It's gonna have to be a movie, and at that point, it would just I'd have to see.
Have you seen Love, Death, and Robots? That little like animated short thing on Netflix.
It sounds familiar, but I don't know. I don't know if maybe if I was like really high or something, I came across it, but I'm not enough to like really remember details about it.
No,
Tell me about
that is the show to watch when you're little. But my God, it's they're like 10 to 15-minute shorts. And the animation varies. Like I know animation is kind of like iffy, but like if you like art, animation is like unreal, because like the way how much it varies, because they have completely different production teams each little short. So like one time you'll have like that really like anime type of like sketchy type of shit. And then another one will look like legit. One of them has Michael B. Jordan, like the guy from Creed, the guy that played the bad guy in Black Panther.
Oh yeah.
He was in a short, and on My Mother on My Dogs, it looked like it was real as shit. Like it looked like it was him. Like I couldn't tell. It was hard to tell what was like animated and what was like real, because it looked legit. It looked legit. It was amazing.
And I feel like when you have that visual and then you're already playing with the concept of like, oh well, this could happen, it kind of just mind blows you so much more.
And on top of that is that, like, again, the whole reason I love science fiction is it has like no limit. You know, we were talking about Hitchhiker's Guide. It's so funny. And then like you can go like Cloverfield horror. And you know, there's like so many different routes that you can like go with like with science fiction. And what I love about that is that they incorporate all of it. There's I'll tell you the two little, and like it's not spoiling anything, but it's just like little summaries of like my favorite ones. One of them is called the How the Yogurt Invaded, and it's literally how yogurt ends up being like the global leader of the planet.
That's like a religion, spaghetti monster or something, like the spaghetti god.
The thing is that it's not like the whole spaghetti god thing is that like, oh well, what is God if we can't see him? Might as well be a spaghetti god. The thing is, this yogurt is like they see it. Like the beginning of it is that they're trying to invent AI, like a biological one, and they fail. So one of the scientists takes like the pheromones or whatever the shit and makes some homemade yogurt with it, and then the yogurt becomes sentient overnight. So that he goes to put like cereal and like, you know, whatever the fuck in the morning, and then it starts like talking to him through the Cheerios.
There are probiotics. There are live cultures in yogurt. So
exactly, that was the whole thing, is that they put the culture and it like developed into like a sentient.
Oh my god,
it was hilarious. And like just like the way the narrators were really sold it. It was like a really like dry humor British guy just like talking really slowly. Phenomenal. And then another one was like a live action one with the guy from Eric from that 70s show.
Oh my god, yeah.
He opens up a fridge. They just moved into a new apartment with his girlfriend. They open up a fridge, and they take out like some really old ice from the background, and he notices there's a mammoth inside of it, and he's like, oh, what the fuck? And they open up the fridge, and there's an entire mini society happening in the fridge, but happening on like a speed cycle. Like they close it one time and it's like medieval, they close another time and they're like, you know, present day.
Oh wow.
It's just like immediate. And then it literally goes all the way up to like, you know, without ruining it, but it is just, and again, it's like crazy as concepts, but they only care about the funny aspect of it, you know?
Right. But if you want to think deeply about it, at least with like the culture progressing, you could be like, okay, but like, yeah, where is our culture heading? Have you seen it's also on Netflix with Duncan Trussell? He has a show. He's also I think he's an author, but he definitely has podcasts. But it's like the same thing. His character travels to different universes, and like the crazy shit happens. Like in all like there's ice cream world, or there's just worlds that are like so bizarre. It kind of reminds me of like House for Imaginary Friends. Like he'll go to places like that.
Oh
And
fuck.
but
Man,
he
that show disappeared from my head. Oh my god, you just brought me back with
yeah,
Blue. Oh fuck,
that show's
that was the
also very
show.
creative.
Yeah. Now Cartoon Network had it back in the day, man,
Mm-hmm.
and Nickelodeon. I mean,
But you would really like that show too, because I also play around with a bunch of like spiritual concepts and about like, well, what's the meaning of life and stuff. But it's also hysterical because you're watching it and what happens in the show does not match the deep talk at all. But yeah, definitely I would watch that. But yeah, Cartoon Network had a bunch of conspiracy theories going on in their shows too. Have you heard about those?
Cartoon Network. I mean, what do you, Codename Kids Next Door. If you ever
Yeah.
if you watch as an adult, you're like, all right, this is why I'm a rebel now. That's why I
Yeah.
want, you know what I mean? That's why I want to go and do all this shit. Because I
Yeah.
watched that show as a kid.
Oh my god. But like even I've heard too, and I mean, I don't know if it's true or not, but it definitely could make sense where like I'm thinking of like the Fairly Odd Parents, where like Timmy, let me see if I can get it right, where like Timmy's babysitter Vicky like actually abuses him and his parents are super neglectful, and so he talks to his goldfish and all of his wishes are just in his head and it's just his imagination, and that's why there's no consequences, that whole thing. And you're like, wait a minute, I thought this was just a funny cartoon show, like what's happening?
Bikini Bottom, SpongeBob. They are literally, Bikini Bottom was the first test site for America's nuclear bomb. So like the whole idea of Bikini Bottom is that like we nuked a place and then like the living beings underneath became radioactive.
Oh my god,
that's SpongeBob. It's still running to this day.
No.
Yeah.
Oh, I knew SpongeBob was supposed to be on Adult Swim, or they like tried to get it to be on Adult Swim, and then it didn't pass.
Well, there was one time that, you know, I was doing some fun shit in college, and I was watching a fucking SpongeBob, and there was this. I mean, it was like transcendent. It was like watching a Christopher Nolan movie. I don't know what they were doing, and I can't even remember what they were doing, but like me and my friends were picking it apart. It was unreal. Like there's a running skit on that show that like I really want to mimic in one of my writings. It's like that whole thing of like my leg, like, you know, like a one person.
God.
The first time they do it, it makes sense because there's like a, you know, a car crash happens. Oh, my leg, right? And then after that, when you watch it progressively, they do it for anything. Somebody like hurts their knee. Oh, my leg. Yeah. It
is what like. Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. I wasn't even gonna say anything important.
That's like that's a good way for people to recognize your work. Like when you have those catchphrases and people can like just go off on tangents about that. Yeah, that's good for SpongeBob. But use an icon.
No, I mean SpongeBob's on another level, and just like if you really think about it, the whole like thing of SpongeBob is pretty interesting because his life is kind of shitty if you really think about it. Like you know what I mean? But it's like his attitude is awesome. So if you really think about it, it's like, you know what I mean?
Oh yeah, it's like, yeah, you just got to have a good attitude.
Because we all want to say that we're Patrick or SpongeBob, but I know I'm Squidward. Let's be honest. You know what I mean? I want to act like it, but I'm Squidward.
try to be SpongeBob, but yeah, come the end of the day, I'm definitely Squidward.
Yeah, like I'm in the front of the class talking about like, oh no, this is how you write right here. You know, I have the beret on, and then like somebody that I'm talking to like listen to the podcast. It's like, oh, you mean this book, national bestseller? And I'm like, oh, okay.
Oh shit.
Oh, all right.
Oh my god. I actually, it's funny, in my book I try, because when you're in creation, if you were like selected to be in creation, you're basically being forced to always have a good attitude in a way, and you're like programmed to just worship Devea, like whatever. I don't want to give too much away, but it's about you don't cry, you can't get angry, and you can't. So my book, it's kind of about like, well, it's healthy, or it's not healthy to not show those emotions. It's healthy to get angry and to be upset, to an extent. But yeah, what in your book do you think, like, what's the lesson of your book? I know we were talking about mine, but what's yours?
Oh man. So like mine is like it's like a weird one because like all right, you ever watch that show Mr. Robot?
Yeah.
All right, so if you ask the guy like in his interviews like what the show was about, he would say that it's about coping. And you would hear them be like, oh, okay, it's not about the fucking like a guy hacking the entire universe. But he was like, no, it's about coping, sure, buddy. But if you break it down, it really is, because like that's like what the main character goes through. So like even though there's like all this like like an alien Frankenstein monster that like crash landed on the planet like thousands of years before the book like thing, that is like literally the motivation for all the technology that like you read throughout the beginning of the book, but you don't find out. I mean, major spoiler, who cares? Because I made them into like blueprints that like you can read throughout the book. So like I
Oh
already
wow.
posted them on Instagram, so it's kind of like a spoiler already. But that's mainly the whole thing, that the technology kind of just evolves and advances like based on these people. So even though there's all extra elements and all this like extra shit on a different planet, to me it really is just about miscommunication. The two
Mm,
main characters are like, it goes in between like a time gap of like when they were 13 versus when they're in the 30s. So
right.
preteen getting into teen versus like adulthood.
Yeah.
And the whole thing is that they were friends in one and enemies in another. And as you go along and you develop, and obviously there seems like there's a lot of reasons for both sides. One seems like the more obvious bad person, and then as the story progresses, and it kind of flips the other way. But at the end of it, it really is just miscommunication. It's one of those things, like if they had just sat down and talked about it
Yeah.
one time,
Right.
one time throughout any part of the book, there would be no reason for the book, no reason for the series. I mean, like, uh, I'm really inspired by Marvel, so like the first 4 books in the series are just like what I consider phase one to gets like
Okay.
deeper into the story. And literally, if they had this one conversation, it would nullify the entire like 20 books I have like planned out.
Oh my gosh. As
Completely
a reader,
nullified.
I'm like feeling stressed because I can imagine like reading that and being like, I swear to God, if they just don't freak dog this out, like, and getting so angry like that. Ugh, that stresses me out. But that's what keeps the reader engaged, like like giving that emotion in them. And plus, maybe it'll make people be like, you know what, I should call that person, or I should talk this out.
Well, I'll tell you right now, it's what like the how I got the motivation is like I had my best friend like through all like I met elementary school when I started making all those stupid ass cheetah and frosted flake stories and whatnot. So all throughout, I mean, I moved to Miami for like high school, but we still like talk,
Mm,
phones and whatnot. And we decided to go to the same college, and we get like everything like almost like it didn't make sense. Like we're talking about like January, February. We didn't even have an idea for college because like we were just no idea, right?
right.
And then by around this time, we were both like, oh, we're gonna be roommates. It was unreal, like how it just like snapped together.
Yeah.
So we both moved to Boston. We're both like living it out, and within a month, we're like at each other's necks. And then 7 months down the line,
Uh,
I literally made friends with people with like sophomores that had like an open room, and I just moved out, just completely. I
oh
was like, you know
wow.
what, you take your shit, and like for the first 2 years, my entire reaction was like, nah, fuck them, like
Yeah.
my side, his side, fuck them, and it
Right.
didn't until like the story started to come together that I was like, yeah, you know what, it really is both sides here, and like it was
That's a
just
really good perspective. Like, damn.
well, that's the like again, it's one of those things that like even I myself, I don't know how much I can actually I've applied it to real life because
Mm,
it's not like we're best friends, but
right.
it's still one of those things that like I don't know. I guess what made me think about that so much, what kind of drove me to write something kind of similar. Know what I mean?
I don't think you have to be best friends to recognize that there was a lesson you could have taken away from it, or that you have at least got from it. You don't have to like be best friends with that same person, but like, because people do grow out. I mean, that just also happens. So the fact that you still kind of came to that realization, I think, is huge. Um, oh shoot, what was I gonna say? Oh, here's this for communication. So when I was moving in I went to Temple in Philadelphia. So before I moved in, I moved in with my one friend and her sister, and then this other girl who was transferring from a school in New Jersey came to Temple, and I went to community college for the first 2 years. So it was both of our times moving in as juniors, and I never really had that like roommate and like friend experience. I mean, I did like at my community college, like making new friends, but never that going away college experience. And even though it was a new school for her, and we got each other's emails, the school gave it to us, like, oh, these are going to be your roommates, blah, blah, blah. So I reached out to her, and I'll leave her name out just out of respect, but I emailed her and said, like, oh, I'm so excited. Like, we're going to be bunkmates. My name's Carolyn. I have a toaster oven that you can use whenever you want, like, super excited. And all she replied was, I won't use your toaster oven. So I was like, all right. So, like, that really just set the tone. And then throughout, like, the year of us living with each other, like there were times where I just straight up asked her, I was like, do you not like me? Like, what am I doing wrong? Like, what can I do? And it was very like huffy puffy, like beating around the bush, like, no, I like you, I like you. But then would still do a whole bunch of like shady stuff where like leave like passive aggressive sticky notes where it's like, please turn off the Keurig when you're done with it. And I'm like, okay, got it. And or like, it's just a bunch of like little petty shit. And then literally the last day of us living together, I said to her, I was like, I can't wait to not fucking live with you next year. And just like flat out, I was like, all due respect, but you suck as a roommate. And I mean, I tried to talk to her and be like, you know, what can I do? Blah, blah, blah. But at the end of it, I was like, all right, obviously you want hate. Like, here it is. But no, it wasn't even hate. It was definitely mutual because I know she felt the same.
No, I mean, it sounds like it. Oh, I mean, oh my God. I mean, like, we can definitely vent about this for at least a hot second. You want to talk about weird communication. So there was one time that I come into our dorm room freshman year, and our freshman year dorms, I mean, like, were as horrible as you can get. It's literally one room, you know, you like split it down the side, like
right.
like you're on Castaway, my side, your side, right? And I go in. The thing is that I don't know, but like college just worked for me. But the moment I got there, it was just like, oh, people, and it was just like, you know, hanging out around a lot and like like meeting new people and just like going around exploring the city. And I guess I didn't like hold his hand as much as I should have. Like to me, it was one of those things. I was like, oh yeah, you know what's up, come on. But I guess I wasn't in tune to like, I don't know, social anxiety type of shit now that like, you know, I really try to like tune into. But like at the time I had no idea. I was like, oh, what do you mean? You see what I'm doing? Just come over here, stop being you know.
Right.
And as that progressed, I guess it kind of like started like building up into resentment. So I go into the dorm one day and it's one of those things out like in and out. I'm grabbing something real quick and just running back out to do XYZ with the XYZ. And he's on the phone with mutual friends from our hometown basically. And he's like talking about that. I was like, oh yeah, angels changed X, Y, and Z. So like literally like I'm like right there. I'm like on my desk and he's spitting distance, like right there. I can like reach out to him and just like pull him down if I felt like it. And like it was one of those things that it was like instead of me like, because obviously that was trying to get like a rise. So instead of me like reacting, I was like, all right. In my head, I was like, all right, cool. Evidently, this is done. No more communication. No more reason to talk. Like rules have been set. No, like I think after like a couple days after that, I was like, it's when I just started like gradually started moving my shit out of the room. And I guess that was the major thing that like it took me like such a long time to like be able to understand. I was like, you know what? If I like, and again, you said it perfectly. Fear, quite literally, is just the not knowing what's gonna happen. That literally all fear is. My fear was just like not being able to like, I don't know, cope with emotions.
Right.
Wow, I guess that's just said it out loud, huh? Coming a therapy session. Yeah. Or just not being able to like cope with that. And then, you know, you grow and you mature and you just literally absorb that like your Kirby into your book. You know what I mean?
Yeah. You learn, I mean, because at that point maybe you didn't know that was your fear or you didn't even know how to express it too. And a lot of that just comes with like you need those experiences in order to understand them and reflect back on them. But like in my book, it's kind of funny you say that, like your story about like not like the fear of the not knowing and then not being able to communicate it. Because in my book, like one character tries to get everybody to realize, hey, we're living in like in somewhere that's trying to control us. Yeah. It's like, you know, wake up, like look what's going on. Like, do you even know how you really feel? Or are you just following like a blind sheep or whatever the saying is? Like, are you just like following along? And then people start being, and then people are like, well, wait a minute, why are you saying this to me? Like, you're gonna get me killed just because I'm hearing you say this. Like, and it's that fear and that like I can't follow you or like whatever. And then a bunch of other shit happens, and you know, some people realize like, oh, this guy was right all along. But then even maybe the main character, and I'm saying maybe because I need people to read this to find out for themselves, but you know, even maybe the main character is like, well, wait, should I have tried to force people to do something when that goes against my whole basic point, being forced to do something? Yeah, and it kind of just pinpoints back to everybody being an individual and respecting that.
We're kind of bringing everything that we've been talking about together and just a weird tangent about roommates. But how do you think that all kind of goes into like what makes the book, right? Because not only do you have these awesome like concepts you have to play with, but like the through line, the thing that pushes people through is the character development, the A to B of a character.
Yeah.
You know, one of my favorite things about Breaking Bad, I've rewatched it I think twice. The first time I ever watched it, I guess I was just in more of an arrogant mind state. I was like, oh yeah, Walt is the fucking man. Literally through everything he did, I was like, nah, I mean, I understand. If I was in the same situation, XYZ. I'm rewatching it now, and like, I'll tell you like this: every time he would do something crazy, my reaction would be, okay, Walt. Before now, it's like, Jesus, Walt. Come on.
But then you love him because he is the bad guy too, or do you hate him because he's the bad guy? Like,
that's the thing. I first loved him, and now I hate him because like you really start understanding that like Jesse is so much more. I mean, dude, the whole season like 4 is like you trying to fear Gus, right? It's like the whole like anxiety of like Gus is gonna kill him. It didn't get me until like now. Gus is actually a fucking phenomenal character. Like Gus deserved to live way more than Walt did. He was generally a good boss, didn't like kill people out of spite. It was generally just a business move. And then Walt just out of pride and just like not wanting to like listen to people. He just
this is so off topic. But a side note, Walt's face pisses me off so much. I don't know why. His facial expressions, it made me not like him from the beginning because he always had like a gaped mouth and like squinted eyes. And I was like, it really irks me. So that's why I don't like Walt. It's as shallow as it gets. His face really bothers me.
I can't even do it because I don't have like a full beard, but like I know exactly what you're talking about. My favorite one is that he has like a band-aid at like what 40% of like all scenes that he's in. So it's that plus a band-aid with the fucking Coke can glasses. Amazing though.
But no, he definitely, I get what you're saying about his character development. It's just hard for me to appreciate it so deeply when I can't get past his face.
You know what I'm sorry. No reason to be sorry. You know what show has me like that? The 100. I love the fantasy of that show, but I cannot get past that main actress. She has one emotion for every emotion. It's like that. She must live in what's it called? Creation. She must live in Creation. She's just like, my god, oh my god.
Yeah,
they're attacking.
Pretty like very just like trying to go through the day or just very like nothing phases you type of thing. Yeah. I'm sorry. What was your question about?
What's my question?
Something about my book and.
How does like the emotional development kind of like push through? Like how do you manipulate the A to B of a character? Which is why I brought up Breaking Bad, because Breaking Bad is kind of the opposite. Instead of seeing growth, you kind of see degradation. Unless you think about the growth of a villain, I don't know.
Growth of a villain is a very good perspective. I don't think I have that. My villain is pretty much like Devea. She's pretty much the villain throughout. I mean, she plays like she's your best friend, and like everybody amps her up to be this big savior because she created like a place for people to go to and people are being bombed. So it's easy to see her as someone who's rescuing people, but you know, deep down, it's for just power. It's for her own thing. So some of my characters.
Does she know that?
Sorry?
Is she in tune with that?
Oh, yeah.
Or does she really think that she's being noble?
She thinks that she's being noble, but when people start kind of revolting, she gets pissed. But it's because she knows that they're not following her rules, but she can't be like, well, they're not following my rules because like it's for their better good. She's kind of like, I know what's best for them. So that's why I think she is kind of just like pure evil, because she can't see past her own power, her own whatever. I guess she's egocentric basically. So, but my one of my main characters, Xeon is his name. He goes through the most change, where at first he's like honored to be, because creation, little backstory, is divided into 6 sectors by this 6 chakras, and the 7th chakra is creation itself. So each character is residing in a particular chakra. And Xeon, when you get to creation, he's in the 6th sector. So he's right before he would enter creation, whatever that means. And again, I want the reader to read that and figure out, what does it mean when you finish the 6th sector? Where do you go? So he's at that point, and he's like, at first, like, yeah, like everybody's astral projecting, like, and I've always been super spiritual growing up, and like this is where I was meant to be. but then he's the one who kind of figures out like, this is not what I thought spirituality was. It doesn't align with me. It's not my truth. And then some of my other characters, I want to mention them, some of them just die at a certain point before they can fully not want to say develop, because it was their time to die, but before they could have their own kind of breakthrough. It's like their life gets stopped short. So it's kind of like, yeah, you should have made your own choices when you had the chance type of thing. So they're kind of all over the place. That's why, like, a lot of my book, like I said, if I made it into a movie, I would need a lot of diversity, a lot of diverse characters I can play like to that role.
There are two things that I've it's like the main thing that I've like studied from Breaking Bad. And it's actually funny that I was like started laughing a little bit as you were saying that, because I just started thinking of like, if I start laughing and I like make like a squinty eye, I'm gonna like mimic that like Breaking Bad thing, and I'm gonna be like, oh, this is gonna be a bad episode.
You almost got it.
No, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna get the Sharpie and just start like filling stuff in. God. Get the glasses.
Put that on your Instagram, please do.
I'll do it. The only thing is that I don't know how to bald. All right, you know what? I'm gonna hit you with a real weird one. Biggest tangent ever, but I will try. I will ski us back to where we need to be in a minute.
Yeah, go for it.
When I was a kid, and it kind of goes to what we were talking about, like with like political like correctness and everything. I had this idea that instead of like for a project for historical, it was American history. Instead of doing like a paper or some bullshit like that, I want to make like a video because it was an option. Of course, I was the one fuck that picked the video.
Right.
So my idea,
I would too.
Yeah, my idea was that I was gonna make like a tongue-in-cheek, and this was an idea. Like I made it. Like it exists somewhere. I just don't have it. It was I always feel like I'm gonna get like B2'd. But it was like a commercial for plantation, but like a tongue-in-cheek one. It was like saying how ridiculous the idea was. So like I got in whiteface. Like I'm real light right now, but I was like a lot darker when I was a kid. So I got like flour on my face, and like made myself white. Got a white shirt on, and I got a southern accent. And I was a lot chubbier too when I was a kid. So I look like
like the Pillsbury boy. That's what I'm picturing.
Oh man, you roasted me, because I guess that is a lot more accurate. I was going for Fat Colonel Sanders. No, that is hilarious. Because that is 100% of the money. God, I wish I would be able to watch that video right now. But so then I got my friend who was literally the same shade as me, and I was like whipping him, and I was like, get to work. And the whole thing,
my God.
No, and the whole thing was that it was like tongue in cheek. I was like talking like how ridiculous it was. I was like, yeah, like, why wouldn't you come and buy like slaves and take them from their homes and do all this like horrible things? And like the end of the thing was like bringing it all together and like all this shit. But if you edited that out, that would be the end of my already non-existent career.
Wow. Yeah, right. Oh my God. A for edginess, definitely, or for really bringing that. Because I mean, like, all right, to go off on your tangent just real quick, I feel like, I mean, you like when we talk about slaves and racism, when we're taught it, quote unquote, in school, it's so glossed over. It's not fully brought into the way that you had presented it. And like that shit was hard and it was real, and it's not. Anyways, but that's deep. That's deep thinking for a young kid.
No, the worst part about it is that like the reason I think about it so often now, and why I like really need to stop saying the story so liberally, is that like back then it was so not an issue. My teacher was laughing her ass off, and again, production quality, you can imagine. I mean, look at this right now, like, zoom back 10-15 years, you think it improved? So I mean, terrible video quality. And then like I think we used one of those like iMovie filters to make it look like, it was like the Western Oh my God, that thing was. And of course, just like being me, there was like this like running joke that we had in that class. So like at the end, when everything was like done recording, I just started like going off on that joke, just like me like breaking character, just like talking. It was like, like as I have, it's being recorded. She's not gonna stop me talking this time. No, I mean,
no, that's funny.
I was literally leaving school, I think like a week after that, like moving down to Florida. So that was my plan. I was like, who cares? I'm just gonna
really
drop the mic and dip. Yeah.
Oh man.
Well, going back to the whole thing of like the character development, how that goes into the character. How did you treat the development of your protagonist versus the antagonist? Is it like a whole thing of like a cat and mouse thing, or is it like almost like an overarching thing that's always present?
Cat and mouse. But what was interesting too is like towards the end-ish of my book and with Xeon, the one who's versing Devea, the evil ruler, whatever, he kind of starts to get the idea. He's like, well, she's doing it wrong, I can do it better. So it's kind of like this ongoing thing about like there's always going to be power. What is it, like power is not the ends to a mean, or what it's not a means to an end, it's an ends to a mean, or something like that. Like basically power can never be fulfilled because you always need it, or it's something that's always like people are going to be sought after and won't ever be fulfilled. So for him though, with Xeon, I made him kind of develop along like staying true to himself to some extent, where like he doesn't want to, like, he wants people to have autonomy and he wants people to like live their own life. But then he's also so focused on trying to ruin Devea, and like that kind of goes against him too, because he's like, you know what, Devea is like, this is who she is. You're at a point where it's like you can't change her. Like that's just her mentality, and like, you know, some other shit kind of happens. But and then Devea, she kind of grew more or less the same, where like she was actually kind of more quiet. She was kind of like that god figure in my book, where, you know, when she spoke, it was very wise and it was like concise, and it was kind of like, this is the law, and everybody was like, yes, Devea, and like bow down. And then like as the book like progressed, you kind of you reveal to more sides of her, which is why I want my third book to be solely about Devea, because she is a very complex character and I do love her. Even though she's like such a bitch, like I do love her because you know, she must have gone through some shit to be the way that she is.
Man, I love that.
So I try to give like depth to all my characters. They're never like, oh, they're type A personality or the type B. Like they're, you know, they're all of it. And I think that's everybody. Everybody's a little bit of something. Like you brought up social anxiety, but in our earlier conversation, and like, you know, I've experienced that. I got very nervous before this podcast. Maybe that's just like normal, but here I am. I don't shut up. I also keep talking and talking. But like, so they both coexist. They're both real. Everybody has so much in them.
I think that's really the heart of like not only writing, but like why do the podcast, you know, why communication is such a like thing, you know, like there is an unlimited possibility and like things that you can't even like, that if you just take the time to sit back and like think about it, you can philosophize about anything. Like I don't know, like if you ever like had like a rough day and just been like at a park and just like seeing like leaves blow, within 20 minutes, like you understand all of life. Does it make sense within a day? Of course not. But you feel better at that moment. Like you think you have it all planned out and it all just like makes sense, at least like momentarily. And that's like the I think that's why like self-help books are like so like big right now, because like I always like make I always like tease my friends that like endlessly like buy self-help books. I'm like, all right, so the epiphany that you had, do you still have it a month later?
I think that goes back to what you said, when you find a book and it has that one line and it really sticks with you. I think books do kind of change you, or at least make you learn. So I think some of it definitely sticks with you, but maybe not all of it. Or it does for a little bit, then you have another epiphany that contradicts it, and then you're like, well, wait a minute, like
that's really what I meant.
Yeah, then you have a breakdown. It's fine.
it's more like that. It's like not that like because you learn like awesome lessons for absolutely anything. Know what I mean? Like I said, like you can learn a lesson from just like leaves falling and shit. But it's just like, it's like life is so like grand that like when you break it down, like it just like I don't know.
It's and when weird. You break it down, is it simple or is it even more complex beyond comprehension?
Right? And then like you just like, and like it's like the whole thing is that human, what you said before, the human likes to put things in box. So like when you hit your epiphany and you hit like your standpoint, it's like, oh no, yeah, we're fine. No more, we don't even have to like go that much far out of the box. And then you can confront it with something that's just an inch outside the box and you're like, oh, breakdown. Yeah. All right, well, what are we gonna do now?
Well, now I know nothing and it's confirmed. Yeah.
And then and then it resets. Now you go to the beach and you're looking at the waves going back and forth and you're like, okay, now I got it. Yeah.
I'm trying to think like an epiphany.
Or maybe I'm talking about myself. Maybe I'm a fucking psychopath.
No, I'll take it. I totally relate to what you're saying. I'm trying to like, I think like one epiphany that I had, or something that like really clicked. What? Okay, like actually and this has been happening to me recently too. Like what really makes sense to me is you get what you give, and that could mean like literally anything, whether it's good or whether it's bad. And like I'm someone who like I was at like a Royal Farms or whatever, like it's like a Wawa around here, but Royal Farms and whatever. So I went in and the girl rang me out.
Oh my God.
I'd so prefer Wawa, but I was at a Royal Farms, whatever. And the girl rang me out and I was like, "You're gorgeous." Like just flat out told her. Like I just give compliments, and then my boyfriend.
You to her?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I was just like, and I mean it, like I'm not just saying it, and like I don't do it for a return, and I probably like made her a little bit uncomfortable when I said it, like, but I wasn't expecting anything in return, like at all. But then like like a month or whatever later, or maybe it was less, but then yeah, my boyfriend and I went out down to in the city, and I was just walking to our seat in the restaurant, and this girl came up to me, and she goes, "I really like your pants," like out of the blue. So I kind of like was like, "Wait a minute," like. But I feel like, yeah, like that's an epiphany that I've had, that I've been noticing, like that you definitely get what you give. So when it comes to writing this book, it took me about 3 years to actually get it finished, written, and hired a publisher, editor, and start that process. And I'm taking my time with it. I was just going to go to like a publishing house, like an indie publishing house, and have them do like the marketing and my website and the publishing and the editing and all in one. And it's cheaper to do it that way. But I decided to pay more and take a longer time with it, because I think if I spend more time and really nourish it, it's gonna reward me so much more in the end than just putting it out. So that's my little epiphany that I'm going through now, where it's just like I need to slow down, take my time. Yeah.
Yeah, I really run myself into the ground, like trying to like get this, like I have pushed back my debut, like I think 2 months. Like my original thing was that was going to come out like February or something like that. Now I'm looking at like June 21st. That's why I have it like nailed down. And even then I gotta like hustle to get that, like everything in order. Like I spent my entire day like up until like 4:30 before I started like prepping for the podcast. I was doing end matter. That's like the stuff after like the book, like acknowledgments and all that, because I started thinking like, why, who gives a fuck about about the author, about me? One, who gives a fuck about Stephen King's about you live in New Hampshire and you have 3 kids? Oh, phenomenal. What's up? Where's the aliens, dude? Who cares? You know what I mean? And no offense to Stephen King, I mean, legend of God, right? But again, like what is the point of the whole, like, about the author, especially for me? Like what is the interest in my life? Like what is that going to do? So I figured that instead, just like, we're indies, like you said, we can do whatever we want, which is like, it's one of those things that when you get into it, it's the scariest thing ever. But as you start getting a little more comfortable, it is the most phenomenal. Like I made my own text breaks last week. The things that like separate a scene. You know what I mean? Yeah. I designed my own and I made them and I put them in the book. That's feeling awesome. Alone was like phenomenal. I was like, oh shit! Like I just made, like every single aspect. Like you have complete control of it, which is again crazy. Like I don't know if you're at the formatting phase of your book yet, but by far, that is gonna shave at least 7.5 years out of my life for one book. So the further we go, it's gonna be like a Benjamin Button, just. But wait, did I even watch the right movie? You get the point. I'm gonna get old fast.
Yeah, I feel that. But no, like, yeah, it's so great to then see, like, no, I did this. Like my last post that I put on Instagram was like a snippet of my brain, and that's pretty much all it is about the author. It's like,
I read it. I liked it a lot.
Oh, thank you.
It was about your grandmother.
Yeah, what was that?
It was about your grandmother.
Well, not my grandmother. About my character's grandmother. But
oh, you see, okay, that made a lot more sense. I'll be honest with you. When I read that, I was like, okay, this is real. I was like, all right.
But hey, if you thought it was real, I'll take that as like good writing. I'll take it.
I mean, believable.
Like, so
there was one analogy, like I really wish that it was like towards the beginning.
Can I guess it? Because it's my favorite analogy.
The government, her hands hadn't. It was old enough to like experience the government, but not old enough to something or other.
Her hand was smooth enough to be unscathed by the government, but old enough to have witnessed it. Yeah.
I had to reread that. Like my favorite line is when like, and I hope it doesn't take like offense, but like my favorite line is when at first you don't understand it and you have to reread it and like you're like, oh shit, it's like poetry. You know what I mean?
Well, thank you. Yeah, and like exactly like that is when you said about the author, that's what the book is. This book is, it's about me, but it's not about me. Like I said, some of my experiences like I put into the book, other times it's just completely made up. So like if you just read the book, like that's all you really need to know about me. Like that was my idea. Like this is part of my mind. Same thing with the dedications page where it's like I'm dedicating this book to myself. I wrote it, I paid for it, I did all the work. And then dedicate it to anyone. I'm like,
me, motherfucker, 55.
Right? Like it's dedicated to me, by me. Love you.
So exactly, like what am I gonna do to that? It's like, oh, thanks for my dogs for like being by my side while I wrote this, like, like, and of course there are other people to like thank and whatnot, but again, it's just like I don't feel like I'm interesting enough to like put that in. Might as well just have like drawings or like
Yeah.
like a coming soon type of thing. It's like, oh, this was like I have in mind for later on. I actually just made like a little promo for the podcast too. Just throw it in there. Why not? Whatever. You read the book.
Yeah.
If you liked it, come listen to it.
That's awesome. The one book that I read, which it was spirit hacking, and it was about this shaman who like he grew up in a very abusive household. And he talks about how he still had all these crazy visions and visitations from just unworldly people, and not even all demonic, nothing like that. It was more just like guardian angel type of things. And you just have to read the book. I'm not asking you to believe what I'm saying to you, whatever, but that was his experience. And so he grew up in a very not spiritual home at all. Like his father used to beat him whenever he would talk about his visions, because his father knew like the shaman blood kind of ran in the family, and his father really repressed and didn't want his son to go through it, like all these things. So Derek's his name, he dedicated the book to his father, which that is like a good dedication. It's kind of like a fuck you, dad, I pursued my shaman path. And like, he's like a multi-billionaire shaman guy who like heals people now. And his father was like, telling him not to do it, and then he did it. So I think that's a good dedication. But other than that, it's like you wrote that book for you.
Yeah, it's pretty gangster. That is pretty awesome.
It's a good book.
Yeah, man. What do you think is the book that really kind of opened your mind to what writing is? And I mean in the sense that I feel like you're kind of like akin, just like the fact that you wrote that line about like the government scathing. Like I think you can kind of pick up on like writing that's almost poetic and like says like it's almost like the Hemingway iceberg analogy, that's just like this little tip above the water, but like the whole thing underneath, it's like a weight,
Right.
So
You know what?
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, like, what is the book that kind of turned your brain into like that thinking of like literature can really, like, literature isn't just like a thing to knock out 45 minutes of my time when I feel like knocking it out. It can really like define human experiences and even put into words the concepts that I wasn't able to break down myself.
So I'm thinking, and I'm actually on Google right now because I have my phone pressed up against my laptop, and I want to, because I read her books a lot when I was probably from like 15 to 18. And her name is like a 2-letter word. Here, I'm going to look up one of her books and see if it comes up, because she has a very interesting style of writing where her books are like, maybe like, oh, Ellen Hopkins, that was it. Yeah. Oh. Ellen Hopkins. And she writes like, so her books are like 700 pages, but each page is maybe only like half a page. And then you could read the book like forward or backwards, and it's still a story, but it's two totally different stories. And she also does write very poetically. And in between her books, she has characters meet within other books. So when you read one book, you like read about one character, then you're reading a second book about a different character, but that first character is in it, and you see how their lives interconnected. And it's like the whole book is one big, each of our books is like one big massive book. So it's just very mind blowing. And she writes a lot about like suicide, drugs, a bunch of like hardships. And, as like an angsty teenager, I was like, yes, give me it. Like I was all about that. So like that, and, at that age, like it really did like kind of hit home in a lot of ways. So I think I would blow through her books. When I like at that age, but also Dennis Lehan. I like him because kind of the same thing with the characters, where he has like a bunch of books all about the same 2 or 3 characters. And even though each story is different, you also see character development throughout each of his different books. So I think reading those two authors, and then when I think about my book and my character development, I took a lot of inspiration for them, or from them, and put it with my writing, with making characters deep. And then I have one character at the very beginning of my book, who was like a major part, but then doesn't even come back until the last 5 pages. And then in my second book, she'll be like in there the entire time. So I have to give credit to them, definitely.
My God, that is so awesome. I can't believe I've never heard of that book before. I really want to read that. That you can read it back and forth to a different story. God damn.
Yeah, it's like
What are people
we
doing?
talk about I know, like we talk about like the editing and driving ourselves mad, but like for her to do that, like it just was beautiful, like the way it was. And it was almost like, you read those books where it's like, oh, skip to page 82 and you can kind of pick the ending.
Choose your own adventure. Oh, I'm going crazy. I want to make that one so bad. It's just,
those are fun. But she like kind of did that, but it was like secret. It was like, yeah, you usually read a book this way, but kind of how you're saying, as an indie author, you make your own rules, you kind of do things your own way. That's exactly what she did. She like had you read it as you normally read a book, and then was like, yeah, but if you look at it backwards, how you wouldn't think to read a book, it's like a whole different story. And you can go really deep about that, of when you talk to people and how they have whole stories within them, and one person's perspective of them is different from somebody else's, and all of that. Yeah, she's fun.
It all ties together to what we were saying in the beginning. I mean, everything ties together. It's unreal.
Yeah.
Now you actually kind of naturally segued into something that I wanted to get into, like the kind of the crux of it. And taking all the concepts that we've been talking about, the character development, the crazy concepts, especially that we have the science fiction fantasy background to like really just go all out. What modern, it doesn't even have to be modern, but like what really crazy concepts do you try to incorporate and like make into nuances of your book? I mean, just the great example you talk about, that how a book can be read backwards and forwards in a completely different story. Frankenstein is literally like a story within a story within a story. It starts off with the 4 letters of the guy, and then ends with the 4 letters as the story of Victor, and then the Frankenstein is in the middle. It like just insanity, and that was back in the day.
Yeah. No, that's pure art.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, with mine, I think like the only like thing I really did with that was when I like brought in this major character and then didn't bring her back until the very end, but she still holds a very important role. It's not anything like, and these authors, the ones that I had mentioned, at least I know like they're older and they've written like at least a dozen books, probably like closer to 2 dozen books. So they've had experience and they're very well established. Like I said, I was a full-time student. I work full-time. So like, I don't want to say like, it's not like I didn't have time to be creative, but I didn't have time to really delve, I think, into all the different things you could do with a book. But that's definitely one of my goals. Like one of those things that like when you're reading it and you're like, oh my God, like this person is genius. But I think that just kind of comes to, I think it's one of those epiphanies where it just comes to you. It's not really something you can research or try to copy. Like if I try to write a book and then have it be a different story backwards, like that's not me, and I'm okay with that. I need it to be my own thing anyways, for it to actually be like something special.
Yeah, I like that a lot.
I think my book in and of itself, I'm very proud with how it is, because to me that's special, but I'm very biased. My book is my baby, so of course I'm gonna love it. But
yeah, it's always so weird when you have like friends that joke around. It's like, oh, is that any good? I'm like, dude, that's like asking anything. It's like, yeah, dude, yeah, that's the answer. Obviously, it's the best book ever. What are you talking about? Who's Stephen King? Scratch that name out.
Like it's all about me. Yeah, exactly.
Man, that is so fun. What do you think? I mean, do you think you'll ever switch genres? Do you think this is like what is the future for Carolyn?
Yeah, I do think I'll switch genres. Well, because like when I first was writing this book, I never really thought it would be science fiction until I started like researching about force fields. I mean, like deep on Reddit threads, because there's no actual science about like force fields. I mean, there is to an extent. I was reading like those science articles about like lab force fields and lab wormholes, and then like Reddit. So I was like, you know what, I think this is pretty sci-fi if I'm this deep into it. But originally, when I first started playing with the idea of being an author, my thing was like, well, I guess I'll have to write a murder mystery, because that's primarily what I read. It was like those thrillers, it was Stephen King, it was like all of that. And I've always heard write what you know, and I just automatically took that as write what you read. And like it is to an extent. I actually have like a video on my YouTube where I kind of explain what that means to me, at least. But eventually, like, I do think I would want to write a murder mystery just to see if I could, because I did have that idea and I do read it a lot. And you know, if I can write science fiction, which is something that I didn't even think I would do, yeah, I want to play around and definitely in different genres. The one that scares me is romance, though. I don't know, because I think I would just make them not be together. It's like, yeah, like it doesn't work out, like that's life. Because I'd be way too focused on like, you know, like life and hardships and all of that, where like that's not all fancy roses. So I don't know.
Yep, I am 100% with you on that one. Especially that I like to play with the idea. I mean, yeah, we're gonna hop into spoilers on that one. But my God, my favorite thing about this industry, this craft, it really feels like it's like limitless. Like the reason I love like comedy so much, and like why I love listening to like comedians on podcasts, or I just love listening to stand up, is because like it is unbelievably, like there's no limit to it. You
Yeah.
hear Dave Chappelle when he was like 15, he was killing it at 15.
Yeah.
And he will still bomb, like fuck up at 50. And like you would think that's impossible. If you gave if a person was flipping burgers within 5 years, they're not gonna fuck up. What are you talking about? Like that is it. They're perfect. Like what can you do? And most vocations are like that. Even with like when you get to like really high, which is what kind of annoying me about engineering. Like you have what we were talking about in the beginning of the podcast, that like, you know, you have this idea of like creation, you're going to do X, Y, Z. That's why I went into engineering with it's like, oh, we're going to change the world, we're going to make technology do X, Y, Z. But you boil down to it, it's a lot of bureaucracy, it's a lot of like red tape. You got to kiss a lot of ass before you can get to that point that you actually have the, you know, the finance to be like, oh yeah, we're going to invest in this idea, we're going to do X, Y, Z. Unless you actually go your own route, you know. But just no, go ahead. What?
That's just that's how I felt when I got into writing too, where I was, because at first when I started writing, I was just for a hobby, but then I was like, no, I'll turn it into a book. And it kind of like whiplash. I didn't realize all these hoops about like, oh yeah, I might have to hire an editor. What about the publishing and then the marketing and then the format? Like at first I thought writing a book was writing it and then somehow magically like you print it out from your computer and like the ISBN number is all there and the copyrights is all set. Like, geez, and it really think like what I didn't know what I was getting myself into when I started this. And I'm not backing out now. I'm like, no, it's something getting published. I have that drive, but it's so like there's always a process. There's always a system.
You know what kills me the most is that like again, maybe this is just me. Maybe I like flying too close to the sun just so I can get burned and just like you know like you know do like the like little dog paddle for like a couple days until I like fly back into like medium ground. But like there is just something that you just feel so triumphant that like you just hand it off to your editor, you get it back, then you go through her edits, and then you're like, you know, you finally have like your thing. You feel like you are just king. You're like, yep, boom, got it, next bestseller right here printed.
Yeah.
And then you wake up tomorrow and you're like, oh, I have to do formatting. Oh, formatting? What's formatting, dude? Well, I got to do this Y Z. 2 hours later, you're like, all right, how hard do I have to pull until all my hair comes out? I think we can do it.
Right.
I could pull a Walter White by the end of the day. We can do this. And it is unending. But it's one of those things. Again, it's the whole comedy effect. You know, like when I was in, I did not have a natural. The fact that I went to an engineering school was outrageous. I had horrible math and science grades all throughout high school.
Like the twist of any story.
Yeah, and like there was no reason for me to go into it. But when I got into college, everything was like, if you just put a little work into it, it was always within reach. Calculus was kicking my ass. And then 2 months of actually just studying, getting like my shit together, I got decent grades in calculus. Writing, I've been on 4s for like 3 years. Still nothing. Still not published. It's unreal. Like it is another. You just keep going. It is unending.
And I think about it too. Like, yeah, I finished the writing, but then it's the editing, and then it's this, and then it's something. But here I am in the same podcast, same breath, being like, but then when I write my second book, I'm like, hell yeah, I'm gonna do it again. Like,
I'll do it in 2 months this time. Who gives a fuck? You know me.
Right. Yeah.
Oh my God. All right. Well, one quick thing that I definitely just want to go in. We're already there. Might as well open the door. What is your main fear with this?
My main, see, I feel like at first my main fear was it's not going to sell. And like, I guess that's very like basic, but it's, I mean, whatever, that was my main fear. But when I very first started writing, like I'd said, you know, a bunch of times now, like it was only for me. And then it was just like, I just want to get a book published because like I've always wanted that, to have my name on a book. I just would feel so cool, basically, is as basic as it comes down to, just like, oh my God, like very impressed with myself. I'm very proud of myself. Yeah. So again, I say, oh, my biggest fear is that my book won't sell. But then I'm like, yeah, but you know what? Like, I still did that. And it wouldn't be for nothing because I fulfilled my own dream that I really wanted. And of course, I want people to read my book, but like, not even just because I want it to sell and I want to make money, but like, I do want people to read my book because I want people to like think a little bit the way that I was thinking, or just open their mind a little bit to like the concepts of spirituality and technology and being human, because I like to talk about those things. Of course, I mean, I wrote a whole book on it, so like you want to share your ideas with people. So my biggest fear is probably that it won't sell, but not really for the money aspect, but that it's not going to make an impact on anyone. I want my book to like positively impact people.
Jesus. I'm literally like, I know it's gonna sound like you know, semi like bullshitty, but like I am 100%. That is the reason I started writing. Like I said, like I got into engineering. I didn't think I was gonna get into writing. The whole reason I even got into writing is that I would just like, you know, when smoke sessions with my friends, we would just start talking, especially engineers, we would just start talking about like, oh, what if we had XYZ? And I would just take it to like nth degree, and I would just keep going in, and not like, I would just like start drilling and really like getting like almost annoying my friends until it got to the point that it was like, yeah, this is probably just a thing that I should like focus on. And at first it was just like a hobby thing, and then it got to that point that like, you know, you love just talking about it. Like you're almost crazy. Like the reason I started this podcast is because I got bored, like bringing up with like random conversations with other people, like bringing up with like a dinner with like family or like friends and whatnot. Because like they just got tired of it. It's like, yeah, we're not writers. We don't want to talk about this. I want to talk about some drama between my friends or whatever the fuck happened with Trump or XYZ. And you know, God bless them, power to them. But like, you know, I want to talk about like why like during the fall every leaf will be outside of like a plant, like, you know, like a tree is like completely dead, but there's that one leaf and it's not even brown, it's still green, it's like still fighting on, and you're just looking at that like, you go, motherfucker. You live your dreams, motherfucker. That's what you got to do. That's what we're here for.
Hold on. I know, I relate to that so much. Like at first too, when I was almost like actually embarrassed to be writing a book, putting myself out there. It's a very vulnerable thing. And going back to what we were saying about social anxiety, like that was a hurdle for me. Like the idea, you know, part of me is like, I want to write a book. I want that. But then the voice in my head was like, you're going to put your name.
Suck.
Right.
You can't do that. What are you talking about?
It's like, you want to expose your thoughts? Like, who are you? Whatever. So it was very like a lot for me to do that anyways. But now that like, I kind of just, as soon as I made that Instagram, like the writing community on that page is so, at least the people that I've encountered with, and I'm a small account at this point. I only have like 300 followers or something. And I love them all. Thank you all, you included. But like, you're all so welcoming. Like you asked me if I want to do this podcast or going live with another writer. Like, it's just very immersive. And I think that's really what I needed. Like, I didn't need to hide it or just have it be like my therapy session when I would write or whatever. It's like, no, like talk about what you love, like scream it at the top of your lungs.
No, you're actually good, but didn't break at all for that. Keep going.
Okay, good. Yeah, my phone, I don't get it. I plugged it into my laptop and I'm on 10%. Take that as you will. I don't know what's happening.
It's probably taking more processing speed to get my forehead.
Oh my
and
God,
how much glisten there is on it right now. No, don't even worry about it, because I'm thinking I'm gonna go kill some ants later by just like pointing my head down, like angling with the sun, like I'm fucking Cyclops from the fucking X-Men.
You should include that in your next book. It's a character that can do that or something.
Ultra glisten.
Yeah, it could be a thing. It very well could be.
Man, that's hilarious. Because, well, kind of like tangent, because the reason I brought up like the whole fear thing, I mean, success is a huge one, but what's gotten me lately is actually repetition. You know, like the reason I reached out is because like you know, again, I could sound like a whole bunch of bullshit. And, like at this point, it might be, but like when I read like what you were doing, the whole thing in like 3 years, I'm like, yeah, like I really connected like more than any other author I've met on the Instagram thing. It's like, yeah, I've really been on that thing, on that same
Wow.
path of like really working on like like progressively on like a project like this long that you keep like so dear and everything. And the
Yeah.
main thing now that I'm reaching the end of it and like I'm actually gonna like get to that point that I'm holding my baby and you know like have the little baby bib on it, I'm like, you know, feeding it whatever. But I'm now scared of like, oh shit, how long is it gonna take me to get my sequel out? Like this, we're putting all chips on the end now. We are a
Right.
writer now.
Right. That's how I feel too with
So
mine.
what's up with the second book? It took what a year and a half, 2 years to get this one book. What's up with the second?
Well, you know what though? What about Game of Thrones? That author is still writing his books, and as long as it doesn't become a show, if that's your goal, as long as it becomes a show before the books are out, really should be fine. And the longer your book is out before the second one comes out, that's more time that readers have to even read your first book, because you don't want people reading the second book before the first one. They might just get confused. But yeah, I mean, but the guy who wrote Game of Thrones, I mean, yeah, he's still writing his books, and like it, I mean, I don't know, every writer is different. And I see things too where I get advertised now on, or I see advertisements for Instagram where it's like, write your book in 3 months, get it published now, like rushing it. And I just kind of already decided that's not who I am. Like, that's not what I want to do. Because I think if you rush it, like it'll burn out quickly. It's not going to actually stay lit for a while. So I wouldn't, don't pressure yourself. I mean, give yourself the time that you need. I mean, it'll come out exactly how it's supposed to that way.
No, I mean, like, it's one of those things that, like, the only reason I say is because, I don't know, to play like devil's advocate with myself. Because, I mean, I guess not. I really, truly believe wholeheartedly both sides of it. So I guess I just flip and flip, you know, depending on how I feel that day, right? But
I've felt that too. Because my book, yeah, it's like, yeah, people are gonna need to read the second one, or I'm gonna have a lot of people pissed at me if I never write the second one. Like it ended like that, or well, what happens about him or something. So I'm like,
oh
reaching
God.
out to my fan base I don't even have yet. Like I'm like, they hate me already.
Exactly. I'm talking over here like I'm having legit conversations with myself. Like, all right, how can you disappoint your fan base? And then like the other voice of my band be like, dude, fan base. What? Your dogs? Who?
Right.
Who?
You have a fan base? Oh my God. Yeah.
Oh my God. And to kind of like really agree with your point. You look at Frank Ocean, right? Man dropped one album however many years ago. You hop on any Reddit thread about people playing music, and it doesn't matter who has the who dropped. J. Cole just dropped an album that I heard like one song of it, and I'm like floored only, right? I guarantee you, if I hop on Reddit to like hear people talk about the album, they'll be like, "Oh, it's all right." But Frank Ocean, if he dropped it, forget about it.
Right.
Like he dropped one album, and I get it, really good album. But it's to your point. Like if you really take your time with something, and you really churn that motherfucker, you know what I mean? And you really make sure, and it doesn't have to be perfect, but if it's perfect for you, it gets exactly what you wanted. Like you can look at it, and there's not an out to you that goes like, ah, damn, I should have went with that cover. I should have went through one more editing round. Like it's fully, you look at that and you're like, yeah, motherfucker, right there. You slap that shit.
And you're like super proud of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, but on the same note, maybe people do only take 3 months to write a book, and that's all the time they need. And if that's the case, like, I mean, go for that. Yeah, like, you know,
I know one dude, 4 days.
Wow.
150 words, 4 days. I was like, all right, homie.
That's good.
It actually made me feel really good because he was talking about that he got to that point after his 19th book, and he was talking about that his first book, I guess for both of our thing, took him like 7 years.
Oh wow.
So he was talking about that, like as you go, it just kind of like streamlines itself, you know?
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say too. Like the more you do it, you get comfortable with the process. Like this is still new for the both of us, which is why I made my Instagram page to like explain the process in detail, because I know it's going to take me a while. Like whereas if I already had the book published, then just make a social media to promote my book or whatever, it's like I'd rather help people give a little bit more. And yeah, so I think like the first author or first time getting your book published, it's going to take longer, and you kind of just learn your most from your first time doing it. And then as you do it, it becomes like second nature the longer or the more you do it.
Oh my God, this has been just I I could talk for at least another 2 hours, 3 hours. It is just phenomenal, phenomenal. I
My
had a
phone
feeling.
doesn't have it in it to do
Oh
another
no,
chat.
no, this is getting to the close of it. But do you have any final thoughts? Any just last things you want to do? Any promotion for the book, Inside and Out? I know you have a release date for it, but make sure to follow the Instagram, follow the process, YouTube channel. Promote all that, drop all that. Say say the links for the people that are listening, and I also have the Instagram ready for the people that are watching on.
Oh,
I'll put the
thanks.
share screen in a second.
Um, okay, yeah. So my release date, I'm thinking towards the end of summer, beginning of the fall. And I really like that because apparently fall is it means death, like season represents death, and I love that for my books. It's like rebirth. It's just like
When were you
perfect.
born?
I was born in January, Capricorn.
Oh.
So like that whole under earth, dark side of the earth type of thing, that energy. Yeah. But
What does that mean? Oh, that's gonna be another tangent. I didn't even know.
yeah, we could go on about that. No, Capricorn. Okay, long story short, Capricorn is ruled by Pluto, and Pluto rules the underworld. So that's that.
Okay, no, I'll
Um,
follow that.
so my book coming out in fall. Yeah, Inside It Out. My author Instagram is Carolyn CAROLYN_Rose_Potts. Website will be linked to my Instagram once I feel that it's fine, good enough to be published. And I'm very new. I don't have like a lot to promote yet. This is the first thing that I'm really promoting, my book. So if anybody could just show me a glimmer of love and support for this one thing, I'm not asking for much. It's one thing. It would be so greatly appreciated.
And not only that, but like, well, if I one olive branch, there's a thing called Linktree.
Oh yeah, yeah. I've seen people. I've
Pheno-
stalked so many pages and clicked on all their link trees to like be like, wait a minute, what is this? Should I be doing this? And yeah.
so I had the first like trepidation that I was like at first of like, oh, what do I really need it for? But like, oof, does it come in handy? Like, I remember at first, like all I had was like what, maybe two links, Instagram and Twitter, and then
Mm-hmm.
just the more you start incorporating things, it like mine is like that lot. Like, and
Yeah.
every
No,
author that I had, it just keeps on getting longer and longer and longer. And not doing like a comparison game here. I'm just saying
right.
like as you go, like it just becomes more and more useful because you can just go like, oh, I can just put that to my link tree, and instead of having
Yeah.
like this long list of like, oh, follow me here and here and XYZ and all that,
Yeah.
just one
That's what
little
I was
thing.
thinking of making too. Like, because I see people either have that or they have a website, but with your link tree, you can also just put your website on there as well. So, like, you can make a link to your website from Linktree.
No, yeah, and I mean, and there's so many other things. I mean, there's like the Goodreads and oh,
Yeah.
one big thing, just like a little tip, and for anybody listening, really, Amazon. For the
Mm-hmm.
when you start getting like reviews in and whatnot, you have to make sure that none of them are people that you know. Amazon has like a whole team of people that no bullshit. It almost sounds like a fantasy, but I guess like it's real. It's like bed bugs. Like you never believe what bed bugs like that's not real. And then
Right.
you get bed bugs and you're like, oh my god, that's real. They
Yeah.
can run you out of your house. Oh my god. But like if you post certain like let's say that we know each other and I'm like, oh, I'm gonna put like a 5-star review. If they do and they do check, if and they find out we're related or something, like not even related like that, but just like we follow each other on Instagram and have talked before, it could be even as minuscule as that. They will not only drop the review, but they'll pull potentially your book off of the Amazon stores.
No way.
Yeah.
Well, that's terrible. That's like such a big obstacle.
I know, but this is where it gets crazy. Goodreads has none of that. Goodreads, you can just like legit be like, oh hey, please, like even the whole beta reader thing. If you go and
Right.
get like a whole bunch of beta readers, none of those beta readers can review on Amazon because you've now talked to them. All those people can all go to your Goodreads though, which directly like influences one another. So it's kind of like a weird game.
Yeah. That's where I was looking into like the reviews as well. But I mean, I guess on Amazon's point, it's authentic reviews then. So they're keeping it real. I mean, it's not like biased or whatever. And I would want to know that too. If somebody who like, lives in Australia or whatever that I don't know and say they read my book, I really want to know what they thought because I have no idea who they are. I haven't talked to them. So it is cool. But for starting out, you're kind of like, God damn it, Amazon. Like
well, oh my god. Well, there's so many limitless things that we can talk about, but just to get it at the end of the podcast, this has been a phenomenal experience. It's a phenomenal talk. Inside Out. Did you drop a release date, or are you just playing it by ear?
Yeah, I don't have an exact date yet, but it'll be in the fall. And if you follow my Instagram, at least for now, till I get a Linktree or whatever, I'll be posting updates about my book, definitely.
And again, YouTube channel, what is it? Drop a link. What is it?
Actually, it's my yoga channel. It's Carolyn Potts _yoga. I was thinking of turning that into my book one. I'm telling you, I don't have much. That's why this podcast means so much to me, because it's like my little like slimmer fame or something. But
fame on this podcast, aiming low.
Whatever, I don't care. But no, I appreciate it. I really do.
No, well, again, thank you again and again. Inside Out, fall 2021. Great. I'm biased because that's my birthday, and that's hopefully when I get my book 2 out.
That's great.
So again, thank you, Carolyn. This is the end of the podcast. AR Sales, aka the A.R.T podcast. I've been AR. This has been Caroline. Again, thank you. We will check up on you again on Friday and for Monday when we have another author interview. Peace out.